Namaskara. Let's study Sutra number 10. Abhāva-pratyaya-ālambanā tamaḥ vṛttiḥ nidrā. What does it mean? In Maharishi Ved Vyasa's translation by Sri Ramaprasada, the glossary by Sri Vachaspati Mishra, it says sleep is the mental modification which has for its objective substratum the cause of non-existence. Please note here that pratyaya here is translated as cause. It is not so in another one, so just keep that in mind. Now, sleep is a very peculiar modification. Why? Because on awakening, Sri Ved Vyasa says, we can remember, I slept well, my mind is bright and functioning well. Or I slept painfully, my mind is not fully functioning, it is not bright. Or we can say, I slept stupidly, is the word that he used. You can translate it as dully, and therefore my mind feels foggy. Okay? And he says that because there is this recognition of cause, we are aware, we have the memory of what happens in sleep, and if we didn't have sleep, perception and sleep, then we would have no memories dependent on them. And therefore, it is to be checked in trance like any other modification. What does this mean? Okay, when it comes to real knowledge, unreal knowledge, imagination and memory, there is no dispute about whether they are vrittis or modifications. They are, because they are typically outwardly sort of cognized objects or non-objects. However, sleep is a special notion. That is why Maharishi Ved Vyasa is clarifying that it is a modification of the mind. Now, the non-existence of the modifications of waking and dreaming states. The cause, pratyaya, is the darkness, which is inertia, which covers the light of the will to know, which is buddhi. The mental modification of which becomes the substratum, that is sleep. The substance of the will, to be is possessed of three qualities. What are these? Whenever inertia appears and overpowers the essence and disturbing energy, and thus throws a veil over the means of knowledge, then the will to know, that is buddhi, does not take on the shape of the object of knowledge, and purusha, being conscious for the time of overpowering darkness of inertia alone, is said to be sleeping well when consciousness is turned inwards. I know it sounds a little complicated, just hang in there, because as the explanations go along, Maharishi Ved Vyasa tends to be the most cryptic, but he is the most original, so that is why we study him. Simply put, when tamas appears along with sattva, that's when you're saying, oh, I slept well. Your mind is functioning and bright. When tamas appears along with rajas, you say, I slept painfully. Right? And when tamas has overpowered both rajas and sattva, that's when you say, and it's just pure tamas, you say, I feel dull, my mind feels so foggy, I didn't really sleep well. Okay, so the question is, when the modifications of real cognition, unreal cognition, imagination occur, they occur in the outwardly directed mind. Sleep being a modification of one-pointedness, like trance. Basically, he's saying sleep is a form of samadhi. Okay, should modifications in the inwardly directed mind also be checked? And here Ved Vyasa says, yes, they should be checked. For that confusing paragraph, he says that basically when inertia appears, when tamas appears, and it overpowers sattva and rajas, that is drive and essence, thus it throws a veil over the means of knowledge, and then we are not able to know, we're not able to use the buddhi to perceive, we're not able to apprehend objects. And at that time, sleep overpowers us, and purusha alone is awake, because we are conscious, which is outwardly unconscious, okay, and is said to be sleeping well when consciousness is turned inwards. Okay, So Swami Satyananda, such a beautiful explanation he gives, so direct, so simple. He says, sleep is the vritti of absence of mental contents for its support. What does he mean? Firstly, he points out that this is a very important sutra. Compared with the first three vrittis, this is characterized by no awareness, consciousness or unconsciousness. Sleep is also one of the states of mind. And he says, if we understand sleep, we understand samadhi. Sleep conceals the knowledge of the external world. So in the Mandukya Upanishad, it is said that in sleep we have no desire, no perception. All the vrittis are concentrated together and the energy process flows as one. The capacity for perception is introverted, it's turned inwards, and outer objects are not seen or heard, nor is there any feeling whatsoever. It is an unconscious state of mind. Now clearly in this he is talking about dreamless sleep. This is what Patanjali wants to emphasize in this sutra. In sleep there is no subject before the mind. It does not see, hear, feel, touch, none of the senses. But when we have a mental experience of an object, now he translates pratyaya as mental content. Okay, he says it's the content of the mind, not cause. So he says we can have a mental experience of content with or without an object. So we can see a rose in our mind, in a vision or a dream without actually seeing the rose. And the content of all the states of mind is called pratyaya. When the very idea of the object is removed, that we don't actually need to see the object, we just have a vision, a dream, the mind is in a state that he calls supportless. So sleep is a state when the mind is supportless, it doesn't have the support of the senses. So there are thoughts, but they are not present in the mind. So the mind does not think, feel, hear. It's not based on object. Brain and mind are temporarily disconnected. Thoughts are temporarily suppressed. And he likens this to a state of samadhi. In dhyana also, we become temporarily unconscious when the activity of the mind stops. So hence, sleep is comparable with samadhi as the absence of the consciousness of the external world. The difference is that in samadhi, the awareness of I persists, whereas in sleep, there is no awareness of the I. In the state of samadhi, awareness of separate existences and qualities, cease. Like you're not really a name or a body or a religion or a nationality. However, a kind of awareness persists. This awareness is devoid of the peculiarities of the external world. The awareness in the waking state is samadhi. And he says it is often assumed that samadhi is a kind of unconscious state. It is completely the opposite. We are completely awake in samadhi. Swami Vivekananda keeps it simple. He says sleep is a vritti that embraces voidness. And when we are awake, we know that we have been sleeping, and therefore we have the memory of the perception. And if we had not had perception during sleep, then we would not have had memory of that person. We would not remember the way in which we slept. So we remember sleep because it had waves of the mind that we perceive as memory. Now, BKS Iyengar says sleep is the non-deliberate absence of thought waves on knowledge. And he says dreamless sleep is an inert state of consciousness in which the sense of existence is not felt. So sleep is a state in which all the activities, thoughts of the mind come to rest. Okay, all the sense perceptions are at rest. Now, sleep is of three types, he explains. If one feels heavy and dull after sleep, it is tamasic. Disturbed sleep is rajasic. And sleep that brings lightness, brightness, intellectual clarity, freshness is sattvic. Now, in the states of correct knowledge, perverse knowledge, fanciful knowledge, and knowledge born of memory, one is awake. That is the other four vrittis. Mind and consciousness are drawn by the senses to establish contact with external sense objects. Okay, and thus one gains knowledge. Real knowledge, unreal knowledge, imagination, and the last one, memory, which we've not studied yet. So it is only in sleep that this contact with the sense objects is missing. That is why there's a lot of debate of, is it a vritti, is it not a vritti? Okay. BKS Iyengar explains that this is abhava, a state of voidness. And the sadhaka, having experienced this negative state of void in sleep, tries to transform it into a positive state when he is awake. Then the experiences of the pure state in which the self is free from the knowledge of things seen, heard, acquired, or felt through the senses and the mind. Sleep, basically, he says, gives us a glimpse of the seer, but only indistinctly, because the light of discrimination buddhi is dulled. So when we wake up, that is what we are trying to simulate. We're simulating the same state of sleep while awake and aware. And that is what becomes samadhi. Okay, Osho. Osho says the modification of the mind, which is based on the absence of any content, is sleep. So mind is always with content. We always have the chatter of the mind in the background, something or the other is sort of going on, a memory, a dream, whatever. We're daydreaming, we're wishing, we're thinking. Only when you're fast asleep, the content of the mind stops the pratyaya. And remember this, because this is also the state of samadhi, with one difference: you will be aware. In sleep you are unaware, in samadhi you are aware. Apart from this, it is the same. The mind goes to non-existence. You are alone, left alone with no thought. You are not aware, else sleep will become enlightenment. Countless consciousness is there in sleep, but the consciousness is not alert. It is hidden. It is in a seed. In samadhi, Osho says that seed is broken open. Very interestingly, he says, even when we are awake, we are not alert. We are not in a full state of mental alertness. We are just perceiving, but we don't have full consciousness of what we are perceiving. So Osho says, when we are not even awake when we are awake, how can we be awake when we are asleep? So he gives you this experiment. He says, when the point at which we can use sleep to become alert is the in-between period, is between night and day. It's both in the morning and in the evening. These are known as sandhya times in Hinduism. And he says that is the time when you have the capacity to bridge this non-awake sleep and the awake samadhi. So he says at that time, if you focus on a single thought, you can take that thought into your dream state and become aware, and you can also start controlling your dreams. Now, I don't know if that's possible for people like me who are just very much at a basic level, but he says, for instance, visualize a rose just before you go to sleep, and there is that in-between state between waking and sleep, where if you visualize a rose strongly, you can manifest it in your dream. And when it starts manifesting in your dream, then you know you have the capacity to be awake and aware even in the dream state, right? So that's a little experiment he suggests that we undertake. Barbara Stoller Miller says sleep includes both dreaming and dreamless states. Thought abstracted from existence is a liberal thought abstracted from existence is the translation of the phrase. And she says it's a liberal rendering of abhāva-pratyaya-ālambanā, which means founded on the awareness of non-existence. So basically what they're all saying is sleep is a state of voidness. Sleep is a state of unconsciousness, inertness, non-existence. However, it is a state in which we later become aware of the state, not while, because in it we are not conscious. Thank you for listening. Come back tomorrow for Sutra number 11.